All right. Good morning, everybody. How are ya? All right. We have a small group today, which is great. We have fall break this week, so we knew we kind of might. However, I did plan to role play today, so that maybe wasn't the best idea. But so let's start with if any of you are willing to be a buyer or seller for me, please put it in the chat box because I'd love to have a role play partner. Um, all right, sorry, getting that out of there. And the other thing I want you guys to put in the chat box is any objections you've been dealing with recently. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the strategy of handling objections and then deal with working through some of the objections you might be facing. Okay, so let me see. Anyone? Anyone? All right, let me know if you're willing to be a role play partner with me. And then if not, I'll just kind of talk strategy with you guys. And then we might get off early. All right, so here we go. We're going to start with, well, actually, let me start with I dropped in the chat box an event that's happening next week in Brown County. It's being hosted by CRS, and it's going to be awesome. It's like TED Talk style. No better place to be in Indiana right now than Brown County, Indiana, right? So, anyways, if you're interested in attending, I will be there. I'm speaking also, and I'm super excited to hear the other people who are going to be speaking there as well. So, it's going to be a great day. If you're interested, let me know. If you have questions, feel free to reach out, and you can register at the link that I put in the thing. Okay, so now let me get myself organized. Okay, so today we're going to go through the strategy in handling any objection. Okay, so this should be a sheet that is probably out, probably at your desk, printed and up, so that at any point when you're finding yourself coming up against something you don't know how to answer, an objection from a buyer or seller, you can follow these steps and it will really help you. Okay. So first, part of handling objections is the mindset that what it says at the bottom, you got to separate yourself from the outcome. Okay. When objections get extremely difficult to handle is when we have in our head a place we want them to go. And if they're not going there, right, that's when we could deal with conflict. The goal is to not really care where you end up. Right? So you're going to ask your questions. You don't really care where they end. Where they end is going to help you better decide, right? Which direction should we go then with that clarity? Okay. So here's the 4-step strategy. Okay. So first, you must acknowledge and empathize what they've said. Okay. So number one, here's how you do that. Let's deal with, let's say we're having commission. Let's start with commission. I've got one on there, what they're not ready to list just yet. Okay, that's the objection that's on the sheet. So let's not do that one. Okay, so, and of course, if you guys have any objections you'd like for me to run through, put them in the chat box and I'll be happy to do those specifically. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you guys kind of random ones. Okay, so commission objection. Okay, so the first thing is to ask what it is you're talking about on the commissions. Okay, so hi, James. If they say to you, yeah, I'm just concerned about the commission you charge. Okay, you want to say, okay, great, acknowledge. So you're concerned about the commission I charge, but let me ask, are you feeling like it's too high or too low? Okay. Ask clarifying questions for that, right? And then they're going to say, oh, well, I think it's too high. Okay, fantastic. And what are you comparing that to? Okay, it's too high compared to what? What else are you looking at? Okay, and then they'll say, well, compared to the 2 other realtors that I talked to. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about those 2 realtors that you talked to. Were either of them discount brokers? Were either of them paring down things that they were going to offer to provide you a lower commission? Okay, ask the clarifying questions, and you have to continue to go deep until you know exactly what they're concerned about. Okay, especially when we come to the commission objection, most of the time we don't get true clarity about what they're worried about and where they're getting the information. Because I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, if they are challenging you on your commission, it's because they just haven't seen the value yet that you provide. You have not shown them clearly, right, how you can make them more money. Okay. So here we go. We acknowledge and empathize. I can't even say that this morning. Empathize. That's still not. Anyway, we're going on. I understand you think that my commission might be a little bit high compared to other realtors that you've talked to. Okay, great. And, right, we're going to ask more questions, ask more questions. And then we're going to get to how can we ask a question that will open us up to explain our value with a story. Okay, you guys are running into a lot of these stories right now in your transactions. Okay, so let's say here's my value or story I'm going to tell them, okay, on the commission. So what I'm hearing you say is maybe that I haven't necessarily shown you flat out how working with me and paying my commission amount could potentially make you more money than the other discount agents. Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. So here's everything that I do, right? Then you're going to talk about here's my average list to sale price versus the market, right? So let me just show you where we're playing here. I typically sell houses 3% higher than other houses on the market. So right there, just working with me because of my marketing strategies, because of my pricing strategies we're going to use and that kind of stuff, on average, I can get about 3% more than the rest of the market. Okay, that is not a made up number. That's a number that I know from doing business. Okay, and we went to 103% is what we were getting in the last couple of years, and now we're coming back down, right? So now we're under, we might be at those 90s again. So you need to know what's the average list to sale price for your market and what is yours comparatively. Okay, find that number out if you don't know it today. The other part of that you want to show them is that you can sell it faster. Okay, so look at your days on the market compared to the average agent's days on the market. Okay, if you pre-qualified really well and you heard that they were looking at discount brokers only, right, you may want to go pull some of the bigger discount brokers and show them what's happened in the last 30 days with the agents who have chose, or for the sellers who have chosen a discount broker, and maybe where they ended up on their average sales price, maybe where they ended up on their days on the market. Okay, so you really have got to pull your stories in. One of the stories you're running into a lot right now is overpricing, right? So you are taking listings that you know are probably pushing their price point, right? And you don't really know what to do, so all you can do is try it, right? Which is great. You got to try it, and you have to reduce at some point, right? So taking your listings that you can actually show them, when I sat down with them, here's the price I recommended. Here's the price we chose. Here's the strategy we chose. We chose to overprice for what the market was showing us at that time. And we ultimately ended up here. 9 times out of 10, where they're going to end up is less than what you originally said they could probably get. Is that right? If anyone has digital thumbs up, give me some thumbs up to show me, right? So show them those stories. Show them the examples of sellers that you've had that didn't sell, right? That it took them longer because they might have decided to push the strategy to go behind the market, right? They got less for their property ultimately in the end. So you can ask them straight out, right? And now we're going to go to confirm that they understand where you're at, right? That you've addressed their concern, and then close. Okay. So pricing, let's just kind of close the loop on that one. Okay. So Mr. Seller, now that I've kind of talked you through all of that, how are you feeling now about the strategy we should choose to price your property? Okay. And then you're going to ask that again. Okay. Are you ready to price it where I want? Great. let's move forward. Okay. Let's do the commission, right? So we've explained all of our value. Do you have any questions about that? Okay, great. So then I guess my final question is, are you ready to hire me at the 3.5% that I charge? Okay, that's the only question we have to have. Do you understand what I'm providing you for the cost? Do you want to hire me for that amount? Right? And then we're just going to go. If they don't, then you have different objections. Now, maybe it's not about commission, right? So if they already are fine with your commission amount, you say, great, now are you ready to hire me for that amount? And they say, oh, we're still not ready. Then you have to isolate a different objection. You have to go back to the start and go all through these steps again. Okay? So let's kind of use the example that's on here. I'm gonna give you guys one more chance because we had a couple people hop on here to give me any objections you're running into recently. Throw them in the chat box so that I can kind of role play with you what I would do to help you solve that objection. Okay. And then for those of you that hopped on late, this is an event happening next week in Brown County, Indiana. If any of you are interested in going, check that link out. Okay. I'm still not seeing any chats for any objections. So that means one of two things. That means objections are easier to handle right now for whatever reason because of the market, or you're handling them so well, you're not running into very many. So either way, that's awesome. And if you are running into any, let me know. Okay, let's go through the one on this sheet because I think this is another one you guys will be running into at a very high level, especially now. Okay, the market does go through seasonal changes. Right now, even though the market goes through seasonal changes, that doesn't mean your business follows the seasonal changes. Okay, so that's the first thing to remember, right? So in my business, winter was my second spring. So spring was my biggest market, winter was my second market, then summer. Okay, so it was very interesting to follow, and that'll come in as we talk about this next, handling this next objection. Okay, so I always knew what the market was doing. I always knew what my market did, right? So, anyways, we're going into the holidays, we're going into the colder weather. People might be thinking about holding, not listing right now, and waiting until the spring to list their property. Okay, so that could maybe be an objection. However, you have to make sure that you have absolute clarity on their goals and what the right market is to help them succeed. Okay, so that's what we're going to do when we break this down. If anyone's willing to be a seller, let me know. If you're not, I'll just keep talking at you. A seller to role play on this one. But let's just use the example on the sheet. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is acknowledge and empathize. I'm going to stop saying that word. Their objection was we're ready to sell. We're just not, maybe not ready to list yet. Okay, so you're going to say, I totally understand. So you're ready to move, but you're just not quite ready. Is that right? Okay, so let me ask, what are the things that you're holding off for, right? Or what are the most important things that would need to be done to make you feel ready, right? What is your strategy for waiting for the spring market? What are you hoping to accomplish if we hold out for another 5 months to list your property? Can you afford to carry the costs of the property for the next 5 months? Do you know what the market will be like in 5 months when you decide to put yours on the market? Okay, so you're going to find all those questions out. You've got to really, really, really understand where they are in their goal of selling, right? So 9 times out of 10, this time of year, people are worried that number one, because of the weather, we're going to lose buyers, right? The other thing they're concerned about is how do I show my house if I've got decorations all over it and stuff, right? So here's some of the stories that I would tell around when you should list your house. okay, and maybe listing it. So now we understand that they want to wait because they think they'll get more buyers and more money potentially if they wait till the spring market. Okay. So then I'm going to ask them, that's a great thought. And that is totally right. So I'm going to acknowledge it, totally understandable. And a lot of consumers think that same way. And let me tell you why I've seen a little bit opposite in my business. Okay. And then you're going to go into, so my experience over the last however many years has been the type and the quality of buyers that are out this time of year are typically very, very, very motivated. So what that means is we'll have to do maybe less negotiating. They have to be here by a certain date typically. If they're choosing to move at this time of the year, they are highly, highly, highly motivated. Okay, so would you rather do less showings and have really, really highly motivated buyers right now, or wait till the spring market and maybe have less motivated buyers, but get a lot of showings potentially? What do you prefer? Okay, and they're going to answer that. You can use the other thing, right? So that's how many showings we're going to get. Okay, you can show them in years past how different was the list to sale price, how different was the days on the market, right? Give them stories of who you're working with currently, right? I literally just found a buyer last week. They're going to be moving here before Thanksgiving and they have to find a house. So if yours was on the market right now, they could possibly look at it. Okay, so explain with your value and your stories. That's so important. Make sure that you're bringing your experience and you're bringing your understanding of the market and all of that kind of stuff forward with you when you're helping them to understand what it says. Okay. So sellers who waited last year ended up settling for blank less. Okay. So that's what we want to show them. We want to show them, had they done it in November or December the year before, they could have maybe sold it for this and they waited. Right? So show them that. Show them the direction the market is going in. Currently, we're seeing the market in a downswing, right? For all these reasons. And here's how that'll affect you if you decide to list now, right? And then you're going to wrap it all up in a nice little bow and close the loop. So now that we've really talked through all of that, what do you think? Is it in your best interest to go ahead and try to put the house on the market now? Or do you still think your best interest is to wait until the spring? Okay, and let them answer it, right? So just where we started, I don't care where they go, right? So you have to remember that. In that whole conversation, if you were needing a listing by the end of November and you were going in there to get their listing in the next 30 days, you are definitely attached to the outcome, right? And you have to walk into these not being attached, right? I can't care if they list in the spring or if they list next week. Okay, I have to totally go into the conversation not connected to the outcome. Okay, so that's the first thing that you guys are seeing me doing. Okay, then you're going to go through the 4 steps. And when you close the loop, you're going to reconfirm, right? Now that we've gone through all that, I've explained it all. Do you still have that same objection? If so, we got to go deeper and understand more. If not, then we can work on the next objection or just move forward. Okay? So this week in your businesses, in your role play, this is a really great practice to do, okay? And in your role play, it's kind of fun to get out of real estate even, okay? Because it gets your brain thinking, right? So do some examples of some objections you might be getting real estate wise, right? And then create some objections maybe your kids give you daily, right? Create some objections that you get from your spouse, significant other. Okay, and use some of those examples in your role play this week. Okay, so your main things, get this printed out. Have it on your board in front of you. Have it out so you can see it all the time. Whenever you're facing an objection, make sure that you're following these 4 steps. The most important one being asking the clarifying questions. Okay. All right. If you guys have any questions, I'll stick around. We will role play these in a few weeks. Well, maybe we've got some other people and I can warn you guys ahead of time. If anyone has questions, stay on. I'll stay here until 9. If not, feel free to jump off. I'll give you guys 10 minutes back and practice handling objections this week. All right, see you guys next week. James. Sorry, I'm just seeing that. Are motivated to buy a home this time of year. Okay, yeah, great question. And are you just asking me that, or do you want me to role play that with you, James? Why it's better?
Yeah, we can role play.
Okay, okay, perfect. I will, okay, so let's say, so you go ahead and ask me that. Why do you say buyers are more motivated to buy my home this time of year?
That's the question. I'm the seller. I was asking you, why is it um why seller of why are buyers more motivated to purchase
Hmm.
my home now than they have in the summer or
Yeah,
last fall?
okay. Because typically what we find since we're in the middle of a school year, not a lot of people will choose to move right now. Right? So the ones that are choosing to move right now likely have to move if they're willing to move their family in the middle of a school year. Okay. Other people want to be settled by the holidays. So they've got a timeline on them. They want to be here by the first of the year. They want to be here before the break or the holidays, right? So they tend to have a hard timeline on them as well. And the other thing is, here, at least in Indiana, we get into really nasty weather right now. So if you are choosing to pack your house up and unload your house in the worst weather of the year, you're
Right.
likely doing it because you absolutely have to and your motivation's really high.
Okay, fair
Okay.
enough.
Yep. The other thing is we have less houses that typically list this time of year because of the seasonality. Okay, so you can show them how listings kind of go down and less listings, right, means a higher price
Right.
potentially. Yeah, depending on the number of buyers that are out there right now. In our market, you can look at showing numbers to show you where are the buyers going, right? So you might see the listing numbers going down and the showing numbers going up, right? So you can watch those things, or they might be both going down. And you're like, okay, may not make that big of a difference this year because of where we are. Okay, did that help? Okay.
I
So
give you
definitely
thumbs
more
up.
competition. Yeah, more competition in the spring too, right? Because everybody's hitting the market. So that's the other thing. Less motivated buyers and lots of competition in the spring. So is that the market you want to be in, right? Or would you rather be in this market with a little less competition and really highly motivated buyers?
Right. I
Well,
guess another thing was what's your plan to sell my home quicker? Because
yeah.
they get it's one gentleman, he said he interviewed three. I'm supposed to know if he's going to select me or not, but
Okay.
today, but he had three other interviews and
Okay.
they all sound like cookie cutters.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
They didn't have
So
a
do you know
plan
your
to sell it.
numbers? That's the first thing that'll help you. Okay. So you have to show him you can do it faster and for more money. Okay. So that's with your average days on the market
Right.
compared to the market.
No, no, I already had the presentation.
Yeah. And did you show him that stuff?
I did. I
Okay.
wasn't trying for him. I had to tailor it a little bit because he's a finance guy. So
Hmm.
he's in the weeds with details.
Yeah, with numbers too.
And yes, he's really into numbers. But
Mhm.
I'm supposed to know, he's supposed to let me know by today
Yeah.
if I have the
Yeah.
listing or not.
I
He
know.
said he's
Well,
been
that's what I was thinking.
interviewing a
If
lot
you
of
didn't,
people.
yeah, if you hadn't spelled that out specifically, it's a good thing to spell out. Okay. So for instance, my numbers, I always sold 3% higher than the market. Okay, so you just look
Okay.
at that and you just say, okay, so if you pick one of these other agents, they could potentially sell it for this 97%. I,
Right.
on average, can sell it for 100%. That's due to my marketing, our pricing strategy, everything we do to sell the house. Okay, so that's one thing
Okay.
you can actually show them, and those numbers are significant, right? Do the difference on $3,000. So you're going to pay me X, and I'm going to make, or the 3%, right? And I'm going to
Right.
make you why. Okay. The other thing is show them how you can do it quicker. So that's your days on the market. Okay. So I was typically about 2 weeks ahead of the market on my average days on the market. Okay. So now you take a lot of things into consideration, but I say, on average, I'm selling houses this much faster than the rest of the market. So that's
Right.
just proof to you that on my listings, I get them done faster than others. Okay.
Okay.
And then as far as the strategy, right? That's all back to our pricing strategy. What's your pricing strategy? Depending on the strategy you choose is going to depend on how long it's going to take us to sell it,
Right. We went over, yeah,
right?
we did show for that.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your
So,
strategy you're choosing.
yeah.
And if you choose that strategy, you're setting us up to be longer, right?
Well, his timeline is December. He's relocating.
Yeah,
A
right.
promotion, but he's
Relocation. That's why
relocating.
people are
Yeah.
moving right now.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So,
All
I
right. I
mean,
want to take a peek.
James, I would look at those numbers, and if you haven't, I would tell him, hey, I was just pulling out numbers for another listing appointment today, and I didn't go through these with you. I thought I'd email you to just show you, right? And then I would just spell
Right.
out those two things and just say, so, I know you're making a decision today, so I thought these might be helpful. This is just to show that I do sell things faster and for a higher price.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
now, if you don't, guys, that's the other part. If you pull these numbers and you don't, that won't be the case. But if you pull these numbers and you're not as good, don't use that one. Use the other one. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Use the numbers that help you. All right. What else, James?
That's it for me. I don't want to take up your time. You'll take your time away from Stephen, Brooke, and Elisa, because I know
Oh,
they want to ask a question.
well, they've had
And
the
yeah,
chance. I told them from the beginning, yeah, bring me objections. And everyone was real quiet today. So, yeah, I
okay.
don't know. I don't know if they have any. I think they're listening because they like to hear the conversation. Yeah, but if
Okay.
you have anything else, feel free to ask me. But
Yes,
if
ma'am.
not,
No,
we'll get you guys
I'm
next
good, but
week.
I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. It was
All
nice
right.
seeing you.
See you guys next
All right.
week. Bye, everybody.
All right.